Hi, and thanks for tuning in. This is the US Futures Weekly Chart Analysis for the week ending 27th of January 2023. First chart is the US Dollar Index Futures, and we'll just put the lines in quickly. Supply came in up here. Here's the breakdown line. This is the first breakdown bar. This is the second breakdown bar. This is the third breakdown bar. Here's the lows of the range. Now you can see spreads narrowed considerably recently, and often when spreads contract like this, you'll find spreads will expand in response, generally within one or two bars, and it's sort of like an equal and opposite reaction. I do note that as price came down, the initial breakdown bar was very strong and widespread. The secondary breakdown bar had only about half the spread, and the third breakdown bar here has halved the spread once again. It seems to me that this downtrend is becoming a little exhausted, and it's finding it more difficult to continue pushing lower. And this was always going to be a bit of a stronger level than these previous two levels that price moved through. So I won't be surprised to see some sort of bounce come. Unless there's a catalyst to force another breakdown, I expect this market is getting ready to bounce. It may go sideways and build up some strength for a little period of time. That won't be surprising, but it's looking like the downside is less likely and the upside is becoming more likely, because it seems that this trend lower is weakening to some extent. It's certainly not strengthening, and I expect there's a reasonable chance price will move sideways and build up some strength and then maybe attempt to push higher. Next chart is the E-mini S&P. This is S&P 500 index futures, and the breakdowns came through like this. There was definitely some buying down here. This is buying support in the background in here, particularly on this bar, this higher volume reduced spread bar, buy the offer bar, test the lows, and buying again on this bar, and then price pushed up, tested the breakout, pushed up to these levels here. Here's the highs of the range. And I said during this period here, it looked like price had avoided moving lower, and that was actually strength building up. And we said last week that I expected price would push up to the highs of the range but not challenge it, and that's exactly what's happened. Price has pushed up to the highs of the range, but it didn't really issue any challenge towards it at all. Now, the highest probability I expect is a bar just like that next week in here like this, possibly with a narrower spread, but something that looks just like that. Now, if the market finds that volume is very low on that sort of volume, you may see a little push higher late in the week, which I usually term as a bit of over-enthusiasm. But I expect the market will test for supply, something like that, next week. That's the most likely or highest probability. It'll certainly be a high probability for a test for supply early. So a tail like this to form here. And then we'll see following that, if trading conditions are really favourable, there may be a little challenge to this line. And if trading conditions just remain neutral, then price may just sit sideways like this. US Treasury 10-year note futures have been poised to break out for some time now, and I thought that they may go this week, but really price moved into absorption mode this week. Volume was proved to be low, so selling pressure is relatively low. Price traded as an inside bar all week, So that's in the relative safety of the previous bar's range. So that's exactly where you would expect volume to be reduced, and it was. This market is still in a good position to push higher. If trading conditions are considered less than favourable, you may get another test for supply, because this week's bar was effectively a test for supply. I will also note that spread narrowed considerably, and it's one of the more narrower spread bars on the whole chart. And when spread contracts like this, often there's an expansion in response, similar to what I said with the US dollar index futures. So there is some chance that spread will increase in response. You may get a push out like this, but we'll just wait and see. But there's, over the next two bars, an increased chance that spread will increase in one direction or the other. And the way the price is set up here, it looks more likely that it will try to push higher rather than lower. Copper price futures. Copper price futures have some breakdowns in the background. There's a breakdown across here. There's a accumulation zone here, which is strength in the background. Here's the breakout. This is effectively a test of the breakout. And this period of consolidation was actually a little deeper than I expected. But then the next period of consolidation adjacent to that was much higher in the range and therefore much stronger, potentially. Price accelerated higher here. Now, here's where there'll be some resistance, and then here, then up here. So price is just absorbing supply just below this line here at this level. It's above the old breakout line. So here's where price is absorbing supply at the moment. Once again, spreads narrowed considerably. Very, very narrow spread bar on reduced volume. Selling pressure appears was quite low, and this market is also in position where spread could increase considerably and expand in response to the strong contraction we saw this week. So look for a powerful move in some of these markets this week coming, or at least the following 2 weeks. Generally within 2 bars, if you're going to get an expansion, it'll happen in those 2 bars. Gold price futures. We'll put in the breakdowns here in the background. Here's where price broke down and was unable to recover. This marks the high of the accumulation zone. This is the breakdown line here. This was the breakdown bar. Price moved into accumulation mode then, here. This is strength in the background, a push out, a very shallow test of the breakout. We bring this line across, you'll see this is where there was some absorption take place here to push above the old breakdown line. And just to show a little bit of extra strength, price gapped out there. Now, in the background, here's the line coming through there. This is the zone price is attempting to absorb through at the moment. And I expect it'll probably last up to this level here. And I'm not expecting a great deal of supply from this bar. Although it was very high volume, I imagine a great deal of the supply that is right up here has probably sold out as price broke down. And there'll be some supply up here, but I don't expect it to be really serious. I expect the most serious supply will come through here, which is where price is attempting to absorb its way through now. And I expect it'll probably continue to trade something like this over the next little period in a fashion like this. I don't expect, it's always possible, but I don't expect price will just accelerate higher like this. That seems less likely to me. It's possible, less likely. The grinding higher is a much more higher probability for me anyway. Next chart is silver price futures, which also have accumulation in the recent background down here. There was the breakout line, price broke out. This was a test of the breakout. Price accelerated higher. Now, this is where price is absorbing its way through at the moment. This is a little gap in the background, and it's probably significant. That's where the supply is most likely to be. Similar to gold, I'm not expecting a huge amount of supply here. I expect a lot of the supply that was in this bar was sold on the breakdown. There'll be some, not a lot. This is the more serious level. And whenever there's a gap, you should treat it as a pivot like this. And there's a gap there, and that's what is causing a little bit of issue at the moment. Now, you're going to have some profit taking at this level at the moment. You're going to have some short sales coming in from people who think it's had a pretty good run and it's due a pullback. If it does pull back, this is the level it'll probably pull back to. And you'll also have some supply being drawn out from the left from people who are trapped into old positions and have been holding on and are now getting a chance to get out. That seems a little less likely because it's a long time ago, but it's still a case that there could be some supply coming from there. The most will be coming from new short sales and profit taking from positions taken lower. So this market's in absorption mode. It's attempting to absorb supply being drawn out in the market. And I expect there's going to be supply issues from the left all the way up here. So similar to gold, at some point, the market may need to begin attempting to absorb higher like this and just grind for a while. It may take a while. That's much more likely than a blast through. And there's certainly, if supply becomes overwhelming, a reasonable chance price will have to pull back, and the highs of this level here around the 22 is the likely level where support will be drawn out, where new buying support will be drawn out. Like crude price futures, this is where the breakdown line originally occurred, and here was the breakdown bar, which formed resistance as price moved on. There was a little breakdown here, and price moved lower. A bit of buying support came in and allowed price to move up to the old breakdown line, but it wasn't able to move above it. And here is the next breakdown. There's the bar. Price moved lower, and you've had some buying support come in adjacent to this level around the $70. Now, price came back with a bit of vigor here, but found support and moved higher. Price attempted to come back a second time, and this time volume was much lower. Selling pressure was much lower in this market. And that's allowed price to push up to this breakdown line. This is a secondary breakdown line. This is the primary breakdown line up here. This is the more significant level. Price really didn't attempt to challenge this line seriously 2 weeks ago, and it moved into absorption mode this week. Now, spread has narrowed considerably, volume increased considerably. That really shows you that buying support has come in here. This is going to give the market some increased strength, and I expect there's a chance the price will challenge this level in the near future. And you may get some expansion in range after the contraction we saw this week, especially as there was higher volume. This is buying support coming in. This is strong absorption, and that will often allow the market to expand in response. Now, the expansion can come in either direction, but the way this market is looking, with an increased supply here, reduced supply here at pretty much the same level, so selling pressure has reduced. There was a response to confirm that, and price moved up to this breakdown line. And now you've got a reduced spread down bar on increased volume that just says buying and absorption has taken place. And that's going to probably allow the market to make an attempt to expand higher. Now, I don't expect it will come straight up to this level, but I do expect there'll be a good chance price will attempt to challenge this line here. Okay, Aussie dollar currency futures. have been quite strong recently, mostly due, but not completely due, to the weakness in the US dollar. We had some buying support come in down here, but it was really only modest. A lot of this came because of the weakness in the US dollar. Price pushed higher and then moved into absorption mode again as it pushed past a couple of important levels. One was around the 68 cents in here. Since then, prices really accelerated higher, and the old, much stronger level was 70 cents, and prices pushed into that this week and really has done a pretty good job on reduced volume. That suggests that selling pressure in this market was low, or at least relatively weak. I'm expecting that the US dollar will move sideways, and I think that's probably what this market will do now. This was a pretty strong move this week. The highest probability is most likely for a test for supply, just to see how much selling pressure is drawn out in response. And price may even come back a little bit and test this 70-cent level, because this has been a really important level in the past. So more than likely, it's pushed through, it's shown its strength, and it's shown some intent. Now it may come back and just dance around this level a little bit and absorb any supply that is drawn out, because I expect some supply will be drawn out. But I expect it will hold 70 cents unless the US dollar does accelerate higher. That'll put this market under a little bit of pressure and may even move back to the 68 under those circumstances. But I'm expecting the US dollar will move sideways and attempt to build up some strength, and that will allow this market to move back to the 70-cent level or thereabouts and attempt to absorb any supply that has been drawn out from the gains recently. Bitcoin futures moved into consolidation and absorption mode this week. You can see the good strong move. We pointed out a couple of times in the past that this bar and this bar looked a lot like buying support, absorption, and possibly accumulation in the background following this breakdown bar. The fact the price didn't move lower in response to those two increased volume bars suggested there was some absorption and buying going on, and that seems to have been proven with the market moving higher more recently. This week's bar is very narrow spread. It's an up bar on high volume. So there has been supply drawn out, which is not surprising considering prices moving adjacent to these two levels here more recently, where supply has probably been trapped and some people get the option to get out if they choose to. There'll always be some shorts moving in after prices accelerated high like this. So there's probably some pressure from some shorting, and there's probably some profit taking too from people who bought down here. So it all suggests that some supply is being drawn out. The bar closing in the middle like this on high volume suggests there's a decent attempt being made to absorb that supply or buy that supply. I won't be surprised if early in the week there's a little bit of testing for supply, something like this, and how much supply is drawn out during that period will determine whether price needs to pull back a little bit or whether price can continue to attempt to push higher. Okay, just go back and have a quick look at the US dollar index again, because a lot of charts depend on what happens in this market. Here was the push higher. Here was the highs of the range where supply was drawn out. Here's the breakdown. There's the next breakdown and the next breakdown. And you can clearly see that each push higher is on a reduced spread bar. And you can just look and see that the thrust lower is reducing as price pushes down. This is really suggesting that the trend lower is weakening. The selling is becoming a little tired and possibly exhausted. The very narrow spread this week suggests that. And an expansion in range is likely, I think the most common response initially will be a bit of a push sideways and build up some strength, and then perhaps an attempt to push higher to some degree. Now, there'll be resistance at this level, and there'll be resistance at this level. I'll just put them in blue so you can see it more clearly. These are the two breakdown lines above. So if price does attempt to push higher, it may go like this. That's more likely how it will develop. It won't necessarily just blast through like that. It'll push up to the line and then test for supply, maybe absorb any supply that's drawn out before a challenge to the level, then another push up to the level, a test for supply before there's any challenge to move higher. Okay, that's my lot. Hopefully that was worthwhile watching. Thanks for your time. See ya.